Hi, I'm TJ,
I'm Maya.
and we're with the La Brea Tar Pits Teen Program, and today we are going to be interviewing Connie from the Fossil Lab. First question, what is something that you think humans can learn or take away from the fossils that you apply, like we can apply them to our own lives?
Yeah, so one thing just sort of in general that I think we can take away from the fossils, just getting a sense of time. We've only been here for a short period of time compared to a lot of these fossils and animals that we're seeing. And so for me personally, I take away just sort of the sense of deep time when I look at these fossils. And realizing that 50,000 years ago isn't even that long ago in terms of the whole span of Earth history. And so I think for me, it's really a sense of time and place. This was LA 50,000 years ago. But then I think in terms of more research-oriented questions, we can answer sort of what was LA like in the past, and how are we sort of changing, and how are we changing LA, and how are we changing the ecosystem, and sort of how has it changed over time. So just looking into deep time and really rooting us here in LA.
Great. Okay, so then our next question is, how or why did you decide you wanted to be more scientist in the fossil lab rather than like a curator or a performing artist?
Yeah, so I've always been really interested in science, and for a while I did think I wanted to be a researcher, so I was on that path for a little bit. I went to graduate school for plant biology for a very little period of time before I realized that what I really enjoyed was being in the lab and doing hands-on things, experiments and preparation, rather than say sort of designing the whole research question and figuring out projects. So for me, the thing I enjoy the most is really working hands-on. And so I started volunteering at the tar pits, and that's sort of when I really started getting interested in paleontology, and especially fossil preparation. It's something I really enjoy. It's really fun, and so that's sort of why I decided to go more of the hand-on preparator route rather than say the curator, researcher. Never really was interested in being a performing artist. Always been somewhat shy, so that was never really in the future for me. But yeah, that's sort of why I decided to be like in the fossil lab as more of a preparator.
That's great. So now you've talked about how you like doing your job as a whole, but can you think of any specific moments that stand out as really amazing to you?
I think anytime something like something sort of unusual has been discovered has been really fun. So working in either sorting microfossils, so looking for really tiny fossils in the matrix, and you find something neat, like say a snake jaw or a rodent poop, a fossilized coprolite. That's really fun. That's sort of hit of discovery. I also really like working with, really lucky we have a lot of volunteers, so I really like working with volunteers and sort of learning from them and teaching fossil preparation. It's always fun to teach someone and see their own sort of discovery of, oh, this is really cool. I'm working on a fossil and it's going to be part of this larger collection, and I'm part of the whole experience here. So that's also really, really fun and rewarding.
So then the next question is, obviously, since the museum's closed, everyone's work has shifted to home, but seeing as you can no longer be in the La Brea Tar Pits Fossil Lab, how are you doing your work from home?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I ask that of myself a lot. One of the things that sort of everyone, all the other lab staff and I are doing a lot from home is sort of all these projects that have been on the back burner. So writing up exactly how we do things and creating a written record of what exactly we do when we prepare a fossil. So leaving a written document for people in the future to really understand how we prepared fossils. That's not necessarily something that's always been done here at the tar pits and at other sites. So sometimes, how we prepare things and what we use to prepare things changes. And for people in the future, understanding what exactly we did and what we used is really important. So one of the earlier glues that people used in paleontology is called glyptol. And you can dissolve glyptol in a lot of different solvents like acetone, paint thinner, all sorts of stuff. But if you don't have a written record for what it's dissolved in, and then in the future you want to remove it, it's sort of, you have to figure out how to do that from scratch. And so it's really important to sort of leave a written trail and so people can figure out what exactly you've done. So that's one thing we're working on. Another thing we're working on is sort of more digital projects. So we've had some sort of projects working on improving our own preparation practices. So for instance, we're working on sort of a new technique to prepare skulls. And so one thing I've been doing from home is sort of collected some data before COVID hit and we were all safer at home. And so I've just been at home sort of getting the chance to really go through it and analyze it. And yeah, that's some of the main things that we've been doing from home. Also other digital projects that I think Libby could probably talk more about, like digitizing data from the past at La Brea, making sure it's accessible for everyone. Then there's going to be a Zooniverse project about that coming out pretty soon, I think. So yeah, keep an eye out. You can also do work from home.
Yeah, so when eventually we do all return to our normal lives and you go back to doing what you normally do in the fossil lab, what's the actual process you use to, from like first finding the fossil in the matrix to actually getting it as a finished kind of product?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. Sort of the overall process is the excavators outside, they find a fossil, they record its location data on the card, they give it a tentative ID, and they sort of pass it over to us in the lab to do the last sort of preparation steps. So once it's out of the ground, it's not necessarily ready to be archived or shown or researched. So what we do in the fossil lab is we remove the excess matrix. And matrix is material that's surrounding a fossil that isn't the fossil. So for us, that's asphalt and dirt and clay. And so what we do is we sort of gently remove that asphalt and dirt and clay from the fossil so it's visible and able to be researched. And another thing we do in the lab sort of related to that process of removing matrix is sometimes there's other tiny little fossils in that matrix. And so when we remove it, and as it's being removed from fossils outside in excavations, we actually keep it and process it and look for little microfossils in that matrix. So our lab is actually split pretty much straight down the middle in terms of those two main tasks. The one is preparing these larger fossil specimens, and the second is looking for the smaller microfossils in the matrix. So once we either fully prepare a fossil, it's stabilized, it's cleaned, and it's ready for research, then it goes on to our collections team, and they're the ones in charge of assigning that fossil a number and making sure it has its own dedicated place and making sure that it's actually accessible for research and keeping it organized. And then, yeah, it's at that point there, sort of, we're done with our task. So that's how we sort of do our in-between step of taking a fossils from excavation all the way through to having that fossil be available for research or exhibits.
Thank you so much, Connie, for speaking to us, and thank you everyone for watching. While the museum is currently closed, you can check out their website at tarpits.org and stay tuned for the social media pages because on May 29th, there's a teen program social media takeover. Stay safe, everyone, and we hope to see you soon.